webinar with BookingSync and PriceLabs. At PriceLabs, what we're doing is we're putting together a series of webinars. One, to share trends that we're seeing in the market. Secondly, to discuss tips and tricks on how to think about revenue management and particularly how to use PriceLabs at this time. Today on the call, we have Audrey from BookingSync team and Anurag Verma from PriceLabs team. And agenda is fairly straightforward. I'm going to pass it over to Audrey to have quick remarks, and then Anurag will share some insights, and then we'll dive into Q&A. Before we dive in, some quick things to note. Make sure that you're dialed in so that you can hear us. Remember that we can't hear you guys. So do type in your questions in the Q&A that you'd see below. We'll be recording this webinar for future access. And then lastly, if you have any specific questions to your location or account, do send us an email at support@pricelabs.co so that we can look into your specific account or location. With that, I will pass this over to Audrey for any comments.
Thanks a lot, Richie, and thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. So yeah, at BookingSync, and thanks to the help of our partners and today PriceLabs, we really want to make sure that we provide you with the right information in this particular context that our industry is facing. So thanks a lot, Anurag and Richie, to take the time today to provide us with the information that you have on your side. As you mentioned, Richie, so this webinar has a bit of a different format than usual. So you won't be able to ask the question through the microphones in the end, but please feel free to share the question in the Q&A, so in the chat, to write them, and we will review them at the end of the webinar. And just a last note that the webinar will be 30 minutes from now on. So that's it on my side. I will give you the word to you, Anurag, if you want to start with the presentation.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Audrey. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. So one of the things we have been looking at over the last few days really started about 10 days back when we started seeing a lot of changes in how bookings happen, is trying to understand what is happening in the market. So anybody who's in the short-term rental industry already knows that there have been mass cancellations because nobody wants to travel right now. Bookings plans that were made have been canceled, concerts have been canceled, big events, major events around the world have been canceled. What we wanted to really dive into in this 10-15 minute sort of data dive is not so much focus on the cancellations, but focus a little bit more on new bookings. So we want to understand, are new bookings still happening? What's the volume coming in? And has there been a change in behavior or in the type of new bookings that come in? And we're doing this from the perspective that we really have, in some ways, no control over cancellations. But from a short-term rental perspective, to sustain the business in some ways, if there are some new bookings still coming in, then it's important to know what those are and how to cater to them. This is also fully understanding that in some markets, short-term rentals have been completely banned for the time being. And so we also want to make sure that shifts because of that are also showing up in our data, and we'll get to see those as well. So if there were three sort of takeaways, broad takeaways that anyone wanted to take out of it, the first is that new bookings are down 80%, and this is looking at worldwide data. We have split it by continents as well, and we are seeing in Europe, it's a little more severe. I think we are seeing 85 to 90% down, but we do see some bookings still coming in. So for anybody operating in short-term rentals, this is no news in some ways. Like, everybody has seen that new bookings are completely down. The second important thing that we are seeing, and this is somewhat actionable. I mean, there's very little to be done about the first one. in some ways. But the second one is a little more actionable, that it says that average length of stay has gone up almost 2 times. And we'll deep dive into some of this data very shortly. And this has multiple reasons. I mean, nobody is booking 1 night, 2 night business trips anymore. But there are bookings happening for longer length of stays, and we'll see that data soon. And then the third really important and useful trend is that booking lead time is down 50%. So lead time is how far out are people booking their stays. So if somebody books a stay for 3 months out, the lead time is 90 days. If somebody books a stay for 10 days out, the lead time is 10 days. So that lead time is becoming shorter and shorter. And we'll see some really interesting trends on this one as well. So to really drive down the magnitude of what's happening, what this chart is looking at, each column here is a booking day in the past, and what you'll see is up until actually almost until late February, the number of new bookings happening around the world was holding pretty steady. Each column here is a booking day, and you'll generally see, at least we see in our data, that middle of the week is when most people tend to book, and then over the weekend it dips a little bit and then goes back up over the middle of the week. We started seeing small dips in late February, which could be attributed to some early markets or some early exposure to coronavirus, for example, markets like Italy. And then as March came in, that trend kept continuing. More and more countries started getting impacted. And March 6th to March 10th is around when most countries around the world realized the magnitude of what's happening, and either there were regulations that came in to say, or travel bans or stay-at-home orders, which is what has now resulted in almost an 80% drop in bookings around the world. Categorizing these same bookings. So this one is looking at all kinds of bookings. In this chart, it's exactly the same chart, but we have excluded any bookings that are less than 14 days long. So this one only includes stays that are 15 days or longer and 60 days or shorter. And what we are seeing is that the volume of those bookings has actually gone up. That is not to say that the demand overall has gone up, because in short-term rental industry, most stays tended to be below 14 days, which is why the overall volume is down. But the important thing is here that's somewhat actionable is that bookings that are longer actually are going up. So if there is a way to attract those bookings, there might be still some revenue that short-term rental property managers or hosts can salvage in some ways. The last chart is again exactly the same as the first one that we saw in terms of total booking volume. So you'll see that these trends that I talked about, where middle week goes up and then weekends come down and an overall decrease in volume, it's holding pretty steady. But this one is categorized by how far out someone is making a booking. So the purple here is people who book, guests who made bookings for more than 6 months away. And that was always somewhat of a smaller portion of all bookings. But 2 to 6 months away, that was a significant chunk of bookings. Similarly, 1 to 2 months away was significant, and then 15 to 30. What we are seeing is anything that was more than 7 days out, which constituted a major chunk of all bookings that were being done about a month back, that has more or less dried up. You'll see that all of that has become these really thin slivers. What we are seeing is same day bookings, which are in gray, and then in blue, bookings made within the last 1 week. Those used to be about, I would say about 30% of all bookings. Those have reduced by about 50%. Actually, same day bookings are holding steady, but they haven't vanished. So there are still people booking that are that need immediate accommodation in some ways. And from that perspective, we are seeing that if you can do something around your pricing strategy to, one, try and cater to longer stays and make those attractive, and two, really have some amount of last minute deals that that are able to attract people who want to book last minute stays, that's going to give some benefit. The other important thing to note here is, given that people have all but stopped booking for far out dates, the peak in a lot of markets, the peak summer season that's going to come up very soon is not getting very many bookings. And that means that a lot of calendars for the summer season are going to be empty or close to empty. But because they are so far out, we don't know how things will recover around the world right now. It's still possible that if things get better, once things get better, and we'll be monitoring these trends and sharing these trends, that maybe there'll be an uptake and summer will more than make up for it. Maybe it won't. So we'll be monitoring these trends. But if you can, from that perspective, given that nobody's booking far out, 2, 3, 4 months out, if anybody is making a booking right now, you really need to make sure to give them a flexible cancellation policy. I know cancellations are hard on everyone, but right now, almost no one who's booking knows what their plans are going to be with certainty. So it's important to let your guests know that, hey, we understand that this is a troubling time and we're okay with offering flexible cancellation policies. The last one is restrictions, where a lot of people have length of stay restrictions for operational reasons. Again, with COVID-19, operations have been severely impacted. So revisit those restrictions to see, are you okay taking shorter bookings now? Or you could do something like in PriceLabs, there is a setting for having rolling minimum stays. So you can say outside of 15 days, I want longer bookings, but inside 15 days, I understand I'll take whatever demand is there, and it's okay, even if we get shorter bookings that we wouldn't have otherwise taken. So if you're a property manager working with an owner, then do check in with them to find out if they are okay with fewer restrictions and things like that. And if you're a host yourself, then see if you can be a little more flexible with minimum stay restrictions and things like that. Those were my main takeaways. If you have any questions, you can always send them, market-specific questions. You can always send them to support@pricelabs.co or type them in there as well in here. But for now, I'm going to leave my screen on this slide so that we can keep this on and take your questions.
Cool. Thank you, Anurag. Participants, just a quick reminder, at the bottom of your screen, you'd see a Q&A. Feel free to type in your questions there and we'll go ahead and answer them. Just a quick reminder also, there is also a chat button. If you do type it in chat, we can't respond back to you there. So remember to ask the questions in Q&A box. With that, Anurag, first question is, how is PriceLabs and PriceLabs algorithm reacting to COVID-19?
So there are really two things that we have done for the algorithm to respond to COVID-19. The first one is, in general, we have, let me share my screen to see. So if you look at your dashboard, you can always set your minimum price, base price, and maximum price. One of the things that we are doing right now is, if you use PriceLabs, you would know that you can go to account level customizations or listing level customizations, and there's something called occupancy-based adjustments. By default, we have made those adjustments very aggressive, but we have also created a new setting that we are calling coronavirus, which is sort of a sign of times in some ways. What it does is, based on how booked a listing is, and this is looking at each listing by itself. So it's saying, if I have a property that's less than 10% booked over the next 15 days, I want to start giving deep discounts to it. And this will happen automatically. So every day we evaluate how booked a particular property is and adjust the prices based on that. So if you're sitting completely empty, for example, here, it's going to, if I hover over that date, it says occupancy factor is minus 35%. So it's going to say, hey, this is completely empty. I'm going to reduce the price massively and try to get some bookings. And you'll notice that it's not going to go below your minimum price. But what will happen as the market recovers, as more bookings start coming in, is that slowly it won't sit at 0% anymore. When bookings start coming in, it will automatically start reducing the discounts. So it's going to be very reactive to how your own listing is doing. This is also something that can be that is going to impact prices not just next 15 days, but 16 to 30, 31 to 60. We have defaulted it to be up to 2 months out because we think, given that most bookings are right now happening only within the last 7 to 10 days, even going out 2 months is a bit of a stretch. But we think, okay, we know that over the next 2 months the market is going to be impacted. After that we don't know, so we are going to keep prices beyond for peak summer season or fall as they are, because we still don't know what's going to happen in the market. But within that time frame, this is going to, if you haven't done anything, that's fine. Just make sure that you have that setting turned off. But we are recommending everyone to go in and select this setting so that you really get those aggressive adjustments based on how your own bookings are coming in. The second thing is we are toning down some of our event forecasts. So one of the things that happens is the way we detect events is by looking at abnormalities in future booking data. So for example, 3 months out, maybe a date is booked usually 20%, but if there is an event happening, it might be booked 25%, and that 5% difference tells us that there is an event coming up and we'll bump up the rates. One of the things that's happening is a lot more events are getting canceled, but people haven't canceled their bookings yet. So those big events still look like peaks to us. So we are toning those down a little bit so that the algorithm reacts to the current times. Does that answer the question?
Yep, that's super helpful. The next question, as your data represented, there is a lot of long bookings that people are getting. What can people do to try and get more longer stays? Any pricing strategy recommendations for that?
So really, there are two standard levers that you can apply. In PriceLabs, you can use these coronavirus setting to set your daily rates. And then in BookingSync, you can set length of stay discounts for weekly stays and monthly stays that apply on top of these nightly rates. So in normal times, we have seen most hosts tend to say weekly discount would be somewhere between 10 to 20%, and monthly discount would be somewhere between 20 to 30%. Given the current state of the market, where a lot of inventory is sitting empty, we don't think that is going to be enough. You might need to make those length of stay discounts a little more aggressive. The other thought is around length of stay. Like, should you start changing your length of stay to only allow longer bookings? For example, you could come in here and say, okay, for all my BookingSync listings, I want to say have a minimum stay of 7 nights and above. And we are generally saying that you shouldn't do that. What you can do is have a minimum stay. Suppose 2 nights is the lowest you want to go. Have a minimum stay that's 2 nights, and then you can say outside of 10 days, I want the minimum stay to be 7 nights, or outside of say 20 days, I want the minimum stay to be 7 nights. What you're doing is, given how less demand there is out there, you're saying I'll take shorter bookings right now, because even if shorter bookings do come in, our lead time is suggesting that those bookings are mostly going to be within the next 1 week. So even if they do come in, they're not going to block your calendar forever. And what this does is this setting of saying make the minimum stay 7 nights outside of 20 days is protecting your calendar for the future. It's saying if you get a 2-night booking or 1-night booking 2 months out, then it's making sure that you can't get a longer booking around those dates. So that's another way to think about it. So there's 2 or 3 levers: the daily price, the length of stay discounts that you can set in BookingSync itself, and then the minimum stay settings that you can tailor from your customizations.
Cool. The other question that we're getting is, our calendars are mostly empty. Any tips or tricks that you have seen people use outside of pricing to get more bookings?
Yes. this is where sort of, given that the trend now is for longer stay lengths, you might want to explore a little bit on places where people book midterm stays. So there, and this answer is going to be very city specific in some ways, or country specific, but find out what channels do people book when they are looking for a month-long stay usually. So, and also find out channels that people who are currently looking to book are going to frequent. So for example, one of the bigger, in US, there is a website called Traveling Nurses, where a lot of medical workers book their stays through. And they generally tend to book longer stays. They are medical workers who are not coming in for 2-3 days. They are coming in for a longer shift in some ways. So see if something like that exists in your area. There are also folks who have started remarketing their listings as a work from home kind of a thing, where if somebody has too many distractions at home, they can book something where they can go work in peace, maybe for a day, for 2 days, or things like that. And then just plain old longer term bookings, like there are people like students who might need temporary housing for all kind of reasons, and see if you can put out get a 1 or 2 month stay right now, because I mean it's better to have some revenue than no revenue. Also, if you're in a place where short-term rentals are banned, that might be your only option. So see, and Audrey might have more insight into the French market on this front as well. See if there are channels that you can, and these might not be short-term rental channels at all, but see if there is something available that's going to get you a few mid or longer-term bookings.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anurag. Audrey, is there anything that you'd like to share on this particular topic?
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Anurag, for this great presentation. I think these are awesome insights that you shared with us. And thanks a lot for your time and for this presentation. Regarding short-term rental bans, so this is not it's not written in the law that is forbidden in France. We know that some region actually decided to ban it. I don't have official information on my side, so I wouldn't like to share any wrong information, but for sure make sure to check the laws and the restrictions on your, I would say, area, on your region, to know what is possible to do, what is not possible to do. And feel free to get back to us if you have any doubts or any questions. And yeah, so that would be it on my side. I'm not sure if there are more questions from the participants. We have 5 to 10 more minutes. So if you have, guys, any more questions, please feel free to share them in the chat.
Great, thanks, Audrey. Yeah, like Audrey said, we have 5 more minutes. If you have questions for anyone who joined recently, there's a Q&A button at the bottom. Feel free to type in your questions there. And also, we'll be recording this webinar and sharing that with you guys. We have a question which is, how do we make our discounts visible on Airbnb?
Audrey, I think you might have a better idea of whether if somebody puts in a discount in BookingSync for certain stays, will those show up on Airbnb? Or our general recommendation would be you can set up date specific or discounts, weekly, monthly discounts, and those, if you set them up directly on the OTA, of course they will show up, but we know that it's also sometimes possible through the PMS itself.
Yeah, so there might be some, I would say, so some restrictions on some channels, but as far as I know, all the discounts that will be actually set up in PriceLabs are coming to BookingSync, and thanks to the synchronization we have with the channels, they will be automatically sent to Airbnb. So my answer would be that yes, if you set up discounts on PriceLabs, it will be sent to BookingSync, and we will send that information to the channels, Airbnb included.
So I'll add a quick correction to that, Audrey. This is part of your answer is accurate. What we send to BookingSync, if you have all these settings and discounts set up in PriceLabs, and suppose you select these dates and put in a further discount,
Okay.
all those are used to calculate a daily rate, and that daily discounted rate is sent to BookingSync. BookingSync will then send that the rate that PriceLabs sent to the OTAs. So if somebody is booking on the OTAs, they will see a reduced rate, but they'll not know that there is a discount. I think that was the question.
Yeah.
But in BookingSync, you can also set weekly and monthly discounts, and those do get communicated to the OTAs. So if somebody is booking a longer stay, they will see that there is a weekly discount applying and there's a monthly discount applying.
Yeah, thanks for the correction. So Sonia, if you want, I will get back to you. Make sure that I get the right information and that I inform you correctly. So I noted the point, and I will get back to you, Sonia, on this. But yeah, thanks for the clarification, Anurag, and I will confirm it a bit more on my side. Sorry if I'm provided with the wrong information.
I mean, this is a complicated time and complicated industry, so I'm sure, all of us go through this.
Thanks. Thanks, Sonia.
We have 2 minutes. One last crystal ball question. Do you see trends changing in coming months? What should people think about summer? Any thoughts or reactions to that?
Audrey, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I actually invite all the participants that are here also to watch the webinar we had last Thursday with the company Transparent. It's our new partner. You can find out more information about them on our App Center. And they were actually communicating a nice information that actually, so the level of bookings for this summer is exactly the same as the level of booking that we had 1 year ago, meaning that people are not canceling their bookings for this summer yet. There was also a nice information that probably travel and like the tourism will be more domestic, meaning that, for example, French people will probably stay in France, Spanish people will probably stay in Spain. And so European markets are already quite domestic. For example, in France, 60% of the tourists are French. So these are markets that, so for them, it's not going to be a big change. So yeah, I really invite you to watch this webinar from Transparent. They also have a nice page that you can follow where they share reports on the impact of coronavirus on our industry. I will share it with you now in the chat. Let me find the link.
Cool. Anurag, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, like Audrey said, we haven't seen cancellations happening for the coming summer yet, but that might be for two reasons. One is we don't know if this will last till the summer, and two, the cancellation policies from the OTAs haven't really kicked in for the summer. So people who want to cancel might just be waiting to cancel for free. Once, if this is still going on, then wait for OTAs to allow those cancellations as well. We have seen, although people haven't started canceling bookings that they already made, we are seeing that people have stopped booking for summer right now. So in the last week or so, there have been very few bookings that come in for the summer. This is the data we have been seeing in the PowerPoint as well. We've been doing the similar kind of a thing where we are tracking what kind of bookings are coming in almost every day. So we are now going to update this page. So if you want to bookmark this blog post where we are going to update booking data trends that we see from PriceLabs perspective.
Perfect. Yep.
That might be helpful as well to understand how many bookings are coming in, what's the lead time, so you can get, if people start booking for summer, for example, what you'll see is if in a month's time people start booking for summer, then this dark purple is going to become larger and larger, where it's very small now. If you start seeing it become larger, that's going to be a sign that people have now started booking for summer again. So I would recommend just keeping a tab of this page just to see how booking trends are developing over time, so that you can sort of get back into action or be prepared when it's time for that.
Got it.
And I'm
Cool.
going to send that into the chat as well.
Thanks, Anurag. And with that, we've come up to our 30-minute mark. Thank you, everyone, who joined the webinar. After the webinar, like after I close out this webinar, we're going to send out a link with the recording of this webinar. I'll also send the link that Audrey had shared and that Anurag's sharing just now. And with that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm going to close out the webinar now.
And if you have any questions for either us at PriceLabs or BookingSync, you can always send us an email at support@pricelabs.co or support@bookingsync.com.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
Big thank you on our side. Thank you, Richie, and thank you, Anurag, for the time, and to the team at PriceLabs for all the information that you prepared and the presentation that you did today. I hope it was helpful for everyone. And yeah, good luck, everyone. Have a nice end of the day. Yep. And feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And thanks again, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.